As for the Intel side, the Linux kernel adds new hardware support to the TCC cooling driver, Alder Lake N, and Raptor Lake P systems. If you are interested in a computer and not just how many frames it can play a game with, you are definitely at the right place because we have a great topic for today: Linux. You might already be using it or might be new to it. There is something here for everyone. So in this video, we will talk about what Linux is for the newbies, and for those who already know what it is, we have the latest news on the last update. If you like videos like this, you can subscribe so you won't miss out on any of our videos. If you already did, let's start with the obvious. What is Linux? Like Windows, iOS, and Mac OS, Linux is an operating system. Even Android, one of the most popular platforms on the planet, is powered by the Linux operating system. Operating system is software that manages all of the hardware resources within your desktop or laptop. Simply put, the operating system is the middleman between your software and your hardware. Without the OS, the software would not function. Smartphones, cars, supercomputers, home appliances, home desktops, enterprise servers, the Linux operating system is everywhere you can look for it. Linux has been around since the mid-1990s and has since reached a user base that spans the globe. Linux is actually everywhere. Your phones, your thermostats, in your cars, refrigerators, Roku devices, and televisions. It also runs most of the internet, all of the world's top 500 supercomputers, and the world's stock exchanges. But besides being the platform of choice to run desktops, servers, and embedded systems across the globe, Linux is one of the most reliable, secure, and worry-free operating systems available. So why use Linux? This is the one question that most people ask. Why bother learning a completely different computing environment when the operating system that ships with most desktops, laptops, and servers works just fine? To answer that question, I would pose another question. Does that operating system you're currently using really work just fine? Or do you find yourself battling obstacles like viruses, malware, slowdowns, crashes, costly repairs, and licensing fees? If you struggle with the above, Linux might be the perfect platform for you. Linux has evolved into one of the most reliable computer ecosystems on the planet. Combine that reliability with zero cost of entry, and you have the perfect solution for a desktop platform. That's right, zero cost of entry, as in free. You can install Linux on as many computers as you like without paying a cent for server or software licensing. Let's take a look at the cost of a Linux server in comparison to Windows Server 2006. The price of the Windows Server 2006 Standard Edition is $882, purchased directly from Microsoft. That doesn't include client access licenses and licenses for other software you may need to run, such as a database, a web server, mail server, etc. For example, a single user CAL for Windows Server 2016 costs $38. If you need to add 10 users, for example, that's $388 more for server software licensing. With the Linux server, it's all free and easy to install. In fact, installing a full-blown web server that includes a database server is just a few clicks or commands away. Take a look at EasyLAMP server installation to get an idea how simple it can really be. If zero cost isn't enough to win you over, what about having an operating system that will work trouble-free for as long as you need it? I've used Linux for nearly 20 years as both a desktop and server platform and have not had any issues with ransomware, malware, or viruses. Linux is generally far less vulnerable to such attacks. As for server reboots, they're only necessary if the kernel is updated. It is not out of the ordinary for a Linux server to go years without being rebooted. If you follow the regular recommended updates, stability and dependability are practically assured. Being open source is really important too. Linux is also distributed under an open source license. You have the freedom to run the program for any purpose. to study how the program works and change it to make it do what you wish, to redistribute copies so you can help your neighbor or distribute copies of your modified versions to others. These points are important while understanding how the community works together to create the Linux platform. Linux is an operating system that is, for definition, by the people, for the people. And about changes, let's start with CPU-related ones. Linux Kernel 6.0 provides some additional fixes for the rep-bleed vulnerability. AMD Zen 1, Zen 1 Plus, and Zen 2 Plus CPUs are not fully secured with IBPB mode, or STI-BP is now available for these CPUs to fully secure the systems. Moving on to AMD-related news, the company is releasing audio drivers for a platform codenamed Pink Sardine. This is an entirely new codename. The company has also used other fish names for its Ryzen 5000 and Ryzen 6000 series APUs. The Pink Sardine platform is based on the ACP 6.2 design. There is no further information about it yet. In addition, the Linux Kernel 6.0 adds support for Sensor Fusion Hub 1.1, which improves the sensor capabilities of Ryzen-based laptops. Finally, the XP Pen Deco L drawing tablet is also supported with the new kernel version. As for the Intel side, the Linux kernel adds new hardware support to the TCC cooling driver, Alder Lake N, and Raptor Lake P systems. There are also some other changes for CPUs. There are some improvements in the process scheduler. NUMA balancing for Zen-based AMD systems improved, and CPUs will be more efficient at finding unused CPU cores while under heavy load. The patch in the Linux Kernel 6.0 scheduler also includes some other balancing features, optimizations, and fixes. The ACPI, or Advanced Configuration and Power Interface, has received some additional improvements, such as support for Zoxine and Centaur processors in the boost control of the CPU Freak driver UI, and fixing the issues with the Xeon Sapphire Rapids C1 and C1E states. The Chinese CPU architecture Long Arch now supports PCI and provides stack unwinding and stack trace support, among some other changes and bug fixes. In addition, the kernel takes some initial steps to support Compute Express Link, the initial infrastructure for deploying CXL region LANs in Linux Kernel 6.0. On the virtualization improvement side, Virt.io, the input-output virtualization framework for Linux, has received some optimizations, fixes, and new functionality for VQ resize support with the new VQ reset feature. KVM also gets some improvements with Intel IPI virtualization and AMD X2 AVIC support, raising the KVM limit from 255 to 511. IPI virtualization can reduce overhead on IPI-sensitive processes and will be available for Sapphire Rapids series Intel processors. Existing Xeon Ice Lake processors will also receive PEBS virtualization support. The RISC-V process architecture code will also receive some enhancements. The SVP BMT extension that provides support for page-based memory types has been improved. The def config has been optimized to run Docker and Ubuntu snaps without issues within the default configuration. There are also 3 new extensions for RISC-V, ZICBOM, ZHintPause, and SSTC. Finally, it received a System Instruction Emulation Framework, a CSR Emulation Framework, and SVP BMT extension support within guests as well. Then there is GPU driver support. DRM subsystems have received new Intel Alchemist, AMD RDNA3, and AMD Instinct MI300 open-source GPU drivers. The AMD KFD compute driver now has peer-to-peer DMA with DMA BUF support, IOCTL call support for available VRAM, and HMM profiler support. The open-source NVIDIA Novu driver for Linux Kernel 6.0 gets support for the GA103 GPU that powers the RTX 3060 Ti graphics card. Changes to the file system was a long-awaited update as well. The file systems available for Linux are also being revised. NTFS3 is currently being revised and received some bug fixes. ETRFS, on the other hand, supports SendStream v2, which allows reading and writing of compressed data. RAID 5 and RAID 6 have received some bug fixes, and sysfs can display commit statistics among some other minor improvements and fixes. With some changes, the performance of asynchronous I/O reads has also been tripled. Flash-friendly file system gets a low memory mode that can shrink conserved memory to create additional space, though this comes with performance penalties as well as some improvements for atomic write operations. The NFST file system also has NFS v4, courteous server handling, which allows files from unresponsive clients to be opened and locked by another client. In addition, it gets some cache scalability improvements and some bug fixes for some data corruption errors. And with that, you are ready to use Linux, or at least you know why you would use a system like this. Of course, you can tell us about your favorite OS down in the comment section. You can also check out our other videos in the Bright Hustle video section. If you do, we'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.